Hello, hello, hello. How are y'all doing on this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day? Happy Friday. Yes, we made it. We made it. Listen, I don't want to take up too much of y'all's time on this beautiful Friday. I don't know where you are in the world, but today is a beautiful day here in the Mile High city of Denver, Colorado. And I don't want to take up too much of my time. All right. So, listen, we are getting ready to get into it. We're going to be talking about digital products. We're going to be talking about digital products because I want to break this thing down in a way that makes it realistic for you to get into, because creating that second stream of income along your 9 to 5 is becoming more and more and more critical. Okay. So I want to get you going in the most minimum viable possible way. Is that even a thing? It's a thing because I just said it. So let's get into this thing, okay? All right. Listen, I want you to think about the last piece of advice that you gave somebody for free that you didn't charge for. And maybe it was in a group chat. Maybe it was a coworker who pulled you into an empty conference room and asked you how you'd handle a situation. And you laid that thing out for these people in 4 minutes flat. Like maybe it was your sister or your mom or your cousin who called you crying about something. Maybe not your mom, but your cousin or your sister or your friend crying about something. And you talked them through it like it was nothing, because to you, it was nothing. It was just how your brain works, right? Now I want you to think about how this person responded to you. Did they say something like, I don't know what I would do without you? You should really do this for a living. Have you ever thought about charging for this? I'll send you my invoice. And then you laughed it off. I know that's what I have done. You just laugh it off. And you probably said something like, girl, please. I just call it like I see it. And then you moved on with your day, because surely if it comes that easily to you, it cannot be worth anything to anybody else. And I want you to notice something about that exchange, because it happens so fast that most women never slow down long enough to catch it. The people who are asking you these things, they're not asking you casual questions. They're coming to you with a real problem. And they literally sat and thought about your answer. And then they walk away lighter with a weight lifted off of them that they had when they came to you. So they feel a lot lighter than when they came to you. And that is not small talk, y'all. That's a service. It is delivered in real time, and you're delivering it for free, and it's delivered by you who didn't even clock it as work. That right there is the moment that I want to talk about today, because that moment happens to women like you every single day. And almost none of you catch it for what it is. Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. And that's not a compliment. It is a transaction that you walked away from. And here's what nobody tells you when you're sitting in that conference room or when you're on that phone call. The thing you just gave away in 4 minutes is the exact thing that other women are paying for strangers. They're paying strangers thousands and thousands of dollars to learn. Right now, today, somewhere a woman is Googling or asking her AI assistant the exact question that your coworker just asked you. These people are scrolling through course after course trying to find someone who explains it the way that you just did, and you did it without even trying. Listen, you have it, and people are looking for it. And the only thing standing between the two of you, between you and the person who is Googling and asking their AI assistant, the only thing that's standing between the two of you is that you've never once considered packaging what you know into something that this person could buy. Are you feeling me on this Friday? Are you feeling me on this Friday? Listen, That is exactly what we're going to be talking about in this episode. I'm not going to be talking about theory because, I mean, if you're new here at Nick at Noon, hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. But I don't teach theory. I don't teach theory. This is not going to be some find your passion nonsense. We are going to be talking about the mechanics of turning what's already in your head into something that makes money while you sleep, or income that you can generate through directly guiding someone. We're going to be talking about workbooks. We're going to be talking about templates. We're going to be talking about checklists. And yes, of course, 100%, we're going to be talking about coaching. I'm going to be getting into the full menu of options here. And I'm going to be talking about which one fits the way that you already think, okay? So welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Happy Friday. Welcome back to another episode of Nick at Noon. My name is Nick Scott. I am the founder and CEO of Her Income Edit. We are an online education platform where we help professional women turn their existing skills into coaching income, digital products, and a second stream of income that doesn't depend on one paycheck from one employer. If you haven't already, I want you to go get your notebook and your pen or whatever it is that you take notes on. Tag your biz bestie in this video. You know, YouTube has this new feature where you can DM a video link to someone if you're watching on mobile. So if you are watching on mobile, send the link to somebody. If you are watching on LinkedIn or Facebook, you can also send the link in a DM or tag your biz bestie. Drop the link to this video in the group chat, in your group me, and share it all over the place, y'all. And if you have any questions as we go through this content, just drop it in the comments. I will be going back and forth. Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. I will be going back and forth between my notes and my video, so I will be able to answer your questions or address your comments and feedback at the appropriate time. And before we get into it, I want you to tell me in the comments or in the chat if you're watching live, what is the last thing somebody asked you for advice on? I don't want to know what you do for work. I mean, what do people come to you for without you even asking, without even being prompted? Because that answer right there, it matters more than your job title. And by the end of this episode, you're going to understand why. All right. Now, let's get into this thing. Here is a pattern that I see all the time with women that I work with, and I want you to tell me if this sounds familiar to you. Just drop a number 1 in the chat or in the comments if you're watching the replay, if this sounds familiar to you. When someone asks you what you do, you list your job title like it's nothing. I'm a nurse. I teach 4th grade. I work in program compliance for a nonprofit. Like, you say it flat out. You say it matter of fact with no emphasis. But then you'll mention almost as an afterthought that you also help 3 coworkers redo their resumes every time someone gets promoted. Or that you're the one in your unit that your unit asks to explain the new charting system because the official training doesn't make sense to anybody. Or you're the person that your sister's entire business runs, or that your sister's entire business runs on the spreadsheet system you built for her in one weekend because you got annoyed watching her do it manually. You undersell the second part of that thing every single time. And that second thing should be the one that you put a price tag on. Here's the thing. Your job title, it was assigned to you. Your skill set was built by you. It was refined by you, and it's proven by you. And it's often in rooms that had nothing to do with your job description. The skill that you can turn into income isn't always the one on your resume. It's the one people pull you aside for. It's the one that gets you a text message at 9:30 at night that says, "Hey girl, can I ask you something real quick?" And then it turns into a 45-minute back and forth text conversation. Has that ever happened to you? Drop a number one in the chat if that has ever happened to you. If that is happening to you on a regular basis, I want you to understand that you're not just helpful. You are sitting on a service that nobody's invoiced for yet. Multiple streams of income matter because your job title is only one bet. It is one bet on one company staying solvent, staying interested in your role, and staying the same. But your skill set is an entirely different kind of bet. It's a bet on you. You betting on yourself, and it travels with you in every room you ever walk into for the entire rest of your life, whether or not that room has your current employer's logo on the wall. Period. And I want to challenge something a lot of us have believed for years. We've been taught that being good enough to charge for something has to look like some kind of credential, whether that's a degree, a certification, or a title with senior in front of it. But the women paying for templates and workbooks and coaching right now, they're not paying for credentials. They're paying for somebody who's already solved the exact problem that they are stuck in right now. And they're paying for someone who can give them a shortcut to solve that problem. And you don't need permission to call yourself good at something that you've already proven you're good at for the last 10 years. Because the proof has already happened. The proof is there. You're just the last person finding out about that proof. Listen, the world keeps telling women to find their passion. Find your passion. Find your passion. What are you passionate about? But nobody is telling you to look at your group chat. Nobody's telling you to look at your Slack from work. Nobody is telling you to look at your family text thread and notice what you've been doing repeatedly without even being asked twice, and you're doing it for free. Here's the thing. Passion is a feeling, but pattern is evidence, y'all. And I want you to get into the evidence, okay? I want you to get into the evidence. I want you to be deep in that evidence, all right? Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. Happy Friday. So let me address something head on and directly, because I know it is sitting in the back of a lot of your minds. If you are under the sound of my voice, I know it is sitting in the back of your mind right now, okay? The word coaching, I said that earlier a few times already in this conversation. It makes some people cringe a little bit because it sounds like Instagram. It sounds like somebody in Lululemon athleisure standing in front of a Tesla telling you to manifest your dream life. But I want to separate the aesthetic from the true function of coaching, because they are not the same thing. Because coaching, when it is stripped down to its core, it is just this. You have walked a path, you understand the terrain, and you guide someone else through that path and that terrain faster and with fewer wrong turns than they'd manage that terrain by themselves. That is the entire job description. A coach is a shortcut with a heartbeat. When you think about that definition, you've probably already coached someone this month and you didn't charge a dime for it, right? Did you walk a new hire through the unwritten rules of your department? You know, the stuff that is never in the onboarding packet? Because if you did, that's coaching. Did you sit with a friend or a family member and help them figure out how to say what they meant in a hard conversation with their partner, their husband or their wife or their loved one? That's coaching. Did you map out a budget for your cousin who was drowning and she followed it to the letter and it worked for her? Did you do that? That's coaching. And it has the result, all of it. You have the results to prove it. Here's the thing. Coaching doesn't require you to have a perfect, finished, fully healed version of your own story. It requires you to be just a few steps ahead of someone else on a specific path with the willingness, you have to be willing to show that person what you see from where you're standing now. And that's an incredibly low bar, y'all. The bar to entry is low. And it's one that you have cleared more times than you've given yourself credit for. Here's the other thing about coaching that I love so much. It is one of the most accessible income streams available to a woman who is working a full-time job and has a full-time life. And here's why that matters. Because coaching doesn't require inventory. It doesn't require you to manufacture anything. It doesn't require a warehouse. It doesn't require dealing with shipping delays or supply chains. The product for coaching is literally you, your brain, and your attention. And you already own all of that. You don't owe anybody. It's free and clear. And for women who are juggling a full-time life and a full-time job, this matters more than almost anything else that I can say to you today. Because you don't need any capital to start coaching. You don't need to quit your 9-to-5 to start coaching, to test it, to even try it. You need a calendar link, and you need the willingness to charge for something that you've been giving away. I want to be very clear. Your 9-to-5 is not the enemy here. And I never, ever, 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 ever want you walking away from any piece of content that you might see across these internet streets about something that I said, thinking that your 9-to-5 has to be. Your 9-to-5 is not the enemy. My 9-to-5 was not the enemy. Your 9-to-5 can be the stable floor you stand on while you build something else underneath that floor. But here's the thing about it. A floor is not a ceiling. And far too many women confuse a floor for a ceiling. And I want to give you just one more way to think about this before we move on to the next part. Most women picture coach as a destination job. Like it's something you become after years of credentials or a rebrand. And I want you to picture it instead as a container. It is a container that you can pour your 15 years of nursing knowledge into, or a decade of classroom management into, or 8 years of nonprofit grant writing into, right? The container doesn't change. What you pour into it, it is all yours. And that is exactly why no two coaching businesses will ever compete with each other, even when they're technically in the same niche or in the same space. Okay? Are y'all picking up what I'm putting down? Show me some love on this beautiful Friday. Now let's talk about the other side of this, because coaching isn't the only door. Now, if we work together, we're going to have some really deep conversations about what I'm going to say. But coaching truly isn't the only door. I said at the beginning of this episode that we are getting into it. We're going to be talking about digital products. And for some of you, coaching might not even be the right door to start with. So if the idea of getting on a call with a stranger makes your stomach drop, I want you to clearly hear what I'm about to say. That discomfort is not a sign that you don't have anything to offer. It's a sign that you might be a builder instead of a talker. And builders have an entire category of income that is waiting for them. I said it at the beginning of the episode. I'm talking about workbooks, templates, checklists. And these 3 words get thrown around so casually in this space that I think people miss what they truly represent. And they represent your decision making that is captured one time, and it is sold infinitely. I want you to think about it this way. Every time you solve a problem for yourself, you make a series of decisions that nobody sees. You make a series of what questions to ask first, what order to do things in, what to skip because it's a waste of time, even though everybody says you need it. That invisible decision tree, the one that's in your head, that is a product. That is your workbook or your template. And that right there is the container that you will pour all of that into, right? We talked about coaching being a container. Your workbooks, your templates, your checklists, those are also containers. And here's the thing, a template or a workbook or a checklist, it is not a lesser version of coaching. It is not a consolation prize for women who don't want to go all in. Because a well-built template can solve a problem for 1,000 women while you are asleep, while you are on vacation, while you are sitting in a meeting that has nothing to do with any of that, right? Coaching scales your time. Okay? Templates, workbooks, checklists, they scale your decisions, and both of these are valuable. They're just different machines doing different jobs. Okay? So I don't want to have this conversation and make it seem like, well, this one's better than this one, because that's not what I'm saying here. Because these are just two different mechanisms, two different containers, right? Two different containers doing two different jobs. And I also want to push back on something that I hear all the time, because women, they're always telling me, but the thing I do is just common sense. Anybody can figure this thing out. But I want to ask you something. If it is such common sense, why does your group chat keep asking you for it? If it's common sense. Why does the new person at work still ask the same 3 questions you solved months ago? If it's common sense, right? You have heard it before, and I am not the first person to say this. It's not even the first time that I've said it in any of my content. Common sense ain't common. It's just common to you because you've already lived it. So the fastest digital products to build are checklists, because a checklist is just a finish line that is broken down into steps, right? So let's just say if you've ever onboarded somebody, if you've ever planned an event, if you've ever prepped an audit, if you've ever organized a move or built a process that kept you from forgetting something important, you already have the bones of a checklist that it's sitting inside your head, or maybe it's sitting in some forgotten note on your notes app, right? So that is what a checklist is. It is just the finish line broken down into steps. So templates, let's talk about templates, because they go, so we have checklists up here, and then templates go one layer deeper. And template is the framework that is underneath the checklist. It is the actual document, the spreadsheet. It is the script that someone fills in instead of them just staring at a blank page, right? So they have the template. And I just need to slow down, because the blank page, the blank Google Doc is where most women quit. That's where most women quit. But here's the thing. When you have a template, or if you create a template, you are the person who already knows what goes onto that blank page. So you're saving somebody from quitting. So checklist, template, or maybe I should do checklist, template. It doesn't matter. Workbooks, that's the next thing I want to talk about. We talked about coaching, we talked about checklists, we talked about templates. Now we're going to talk about workbooks, because a workbook is going to walk someone through a transformation. So a workbook isn't a task. It is not a do these 5 things. It's more of a think this way, then do this, then reflect on that thing, and then adjust. Okay, so it's just it's more of a transformation. Workbooks are for deeper problems. It's for the identity level stuff. It's for the I keep doing this pattern and I don't know why stuff. And here's the thing that most women miss in all this. And this is the beauty in an online business and having and creating and building an online business. And that is, you don't have to pick this lane forever. You can build a checklist this month and then see how people respond to it, and then let that response tell you whether the next move is a template or a workbook or a coaching offer built around that exact same problem. You see what I'm saying? Your product is not a life sentence. You are not married to this thing. Your first product is a test. Your second product is a test. Your third product is this is just one long, infinite test. And I want to add one more thing while we're talking about this, because this is where a lot of women get stuck choosing a format over substance. Nobody, I don't care who it is, nobody buys a template because it's a template. Nobody is buying a checklist because checklists are trendy. It doesn't matter what it is that you're selling. People are buying relief. They are buying the version of themselves who's already on the other side of the problem that you solve. The format, remember, is just the container. The format that you choose, it is just the package. The relief is the transaction, okay? All right. So I just said it a minute ago that I needed to slow down. I think I'm going to slow it down just a little bit more, because this is the part where most women talk themselves out of everything that I have said so far. And that is because they keep telling themselves that I'm not qualified enough. I'm not ready. And I hear some version of this sentence almost every single day, almost to every single woman that I talk to. And every time I hear it, I want to ask a different question, because qualification was never the bar. That's not the bar that you need to clear. So the question isn't whether or not you're the most advanced person in the room. That's not the question. The question is whether or not you're ahead. Have you lived some life? Have you solved some problems? Have you been through some things? I'm not talking about, are you ahead of where someone else is? I'm talking about, are you ahead on a path that you've already walked? Because that's a completely different threshold, isn't it? And almost every woman watching this reaches that threshold on at least one topic without even realizing it. What is that threshold? Drop it in the comments if you're comfortable. You don't need to be the best in the world at something. You don't need to be the only person in the world doing the thing. You need to be better at that thing than the woman who's stuck, the woman who's confused, the woman who desperately needs relief from the pain that she's feeling. And that woman is willing to pay to stop being stuck or confused. And that is a much smaller, much more achievable gap than the one that you've been measuring yourself against, I bet. And people often, too often, especially in the Black community, y'all, we are good with confusing credentials with clarity. But here's the thing. People are not paying for your credentials. They matter. Let's be clear. We worked hard for these degrees and these awards and these accolades and all the things, okay? We worked hard for that, so they do matter. But that's not what people are paying for, because people are paying people with way less awards, way less degrees, and way less accolades than me or you have, okay? What people are paying for is clarity. They're paying for clarity. People do not always hire the smartest person in the room. They're hiring the person who can make something make sense to them, who can speak their language, and who can meet them at their level. So what we're talking about here is translation. And translation is a skill. And it might be your skill. And it's worth money all by itself, regardless of how advanced your knowledge is on paper. So I want to give you just a small test for this. I want you to think about the last time you read an article on a topic that you already understand, and it was written by someone who has far more credentials than you, and you still walked away from that article more confused than when you started. Credentials, they could have had 5 PhDs, MD, JD, and a PharmD. When you read that piece, credentials didn't save it. It didn't make it more clear to you. But clarity would have saved that piece, right? And clarity is something that you might already have in abundance on a topic you never once considered monetizing, simply because being clear, it feels too ordinary to be valuable. Like, you're worried if you put yourself out there as someone who helps with this particular thing, somebody who's more advanced than you with the PharmD, JD, MD, PhD will see it and call you out. Like some imaginary, more impressive version of yourself is just magically going to materialize in your comment section and expose you, right? Let me tell you something. That person is not coming for you or for me. And even if that person existed, she's not competing for your audience. She's not competing for your voice or your way of explaining things. The woman who needs what you know isn't looking for the most credentialed option available. She's looking for someone who gets her. She's looking for someone who explains the thing in a way that finally clicks for her. And she's looking for someone who doesn't make her feel small for not already knowing this thing. And that right there is a specific kind of value. And it has nothing to do with how many letters you have after your name. It don't matter if you got all the D's. Okay? And there is another version of this fear. And I just quickly want to talk about it, because I don't think enough people do. Y'all know how we do over here at Nick at Noon. And if you don't, welcome to Nick at Noon. Some of you are not afraid of being called out. Some of y'all are not afraid of being called out by the person with the JD, MD, PharmD, PhD. Some of you are afraid of being seen just altogether. Like, you don't even want to be seen. Listen, staying small has felt safe for a long time, right? And putting a price on what you know, it means that you have to step into that visibility that you have probably spent years avoiding. And I want to be very, 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 very clear. That fear is real. That fear of being visible and putting yourself out there and putting a stamp and making a mark on this world with your POV, with your perspectives, with things that might make people feel uncomfortable, that fear is real. And I'm not going to dismiss it. But what I am going to say is this. Invisibility has never paid a single bill. Invisibility has never paid a single bill. At some point, safety and stagnation start looking like the exact same thing. And here's the thing, only one of those is going to keep you safe. Is it going to be safety? Is it going to be stagnation? Which one? I want to talk about why all of this can feel a little scary, even after everything that I just said, because I don't want to pretend that this discomfort that some people feel isn't real. I just want to kind of maybe relocate where that discomfort is coming from. So most women think the fear is about failing, right? Like, what if I build something and nobody buys it? Okay, yeah. What if I mean, it's happened to me. But so that fear is real. What if I put myself out there and it flops? Okay. That's the story that you told yourself, and it's a believable story because it happens. Like I said, it's happened to me. But I don't think that is the true story. I don't think that's the true story here. I think the deeper fear is something else. I think the root is something else. And that is, what if this works? Then that means that you have been sitting on this the whole time. Like, what if you build a simple checklist this weekend and you sell it to 20 women, and it changes how you see, and it helps those women change, and it helps those women change how they see their own problem, right? So you build a checklist this weekend, you sell it to 20 women, and it changes how they see their problem. And now you have to sit there knowing that you could have done this 2 years ago. You could have done this 5 years ago. You could have done this before you got laid off. You could have done this before you burned out. You could have done this before you needed it so urgently. And that is not a fear of failure. That is a fear of finding out that you had more agency than you allowed yourself to believe you did. And I want to be very clear about what I'm about to say. Hello, hello, hello. Thanks for joining. Multiple streams of income are not a luxury reserved for women with extra time, extra money, or extra confidence. Multiple streams of income are safety. They are real, tangible safety in a job market where loyalty to a company that has never once been loyal in return. Your 9 to 5, and remember, your 9 to 5 was never built to be the only structure holding up your entire financial life. It was never designed to do that. And the moment a layoff or restructuring or a sudden policy change hits, you find out exactly how thin that single structure really was. And I have lived that exact moment. I know precisely what it feels like to have one paycheck disappear and realize the floor wasn't as solid or stable as you thought. A second stream of income is not about getting rich. It's about never being one decision away from panic. It is about being able to say no to something unfair at work because you're not financially trapped into saying yes. It is about, this is what this is about. It is about choosing your next move, instead of having it chosen for you. And this, what I'm talking about right now, this is the part where coaching and digital products stop being about a side hustle conversation, and then they start being about risk management. Think about it. Do you have car insurance? I hope you do. I do. Do you have insurance on your dwelling space, whether you rent or own? Do you have insurance? Do you have health insurance? So why would you leave your income, the thing that is funding your car insurance, your dwelling insurance, and your health insurance? Why would you leave your income completely uninsured and dependent on one single source? Why would you do that? Here's something worth thinking about. Most of you have a backup plan for if your car breaks down. Some of you have a backup plan for if your power goes out. But most of you don't have a backup plan for the one thing your entire household runs on. And that is not a character flaw, y'all. It is just a gap that nobody pointed out to you before now. So I know some of you are sitting there with 3 different ideas competing in your head right now. And I want to give you a way to quickly sort through all of that because overthinking this has its own kind of trap, and I don't want you to get stuck in this, okay? So, here's a question that cuts through almost all of it. I want you to think about the thing that people ask you for help with, even when you didn't offer help. I don't want you to think about the thing that you're proud of on paper. I want you to think about the thing that people come to you for over and over and over again, because that repetition is data. It is not a coincidence that 3 different people in 3 different seasons of your life all have the same question for you to answer. What that is a pattern. And patterns are the closest thing to market research that you'll ever get. And guess what? These patterns, it's free. That is free market research. And once you've identified that pattern, the next sort is simple. Like the next thing that you need to figure out is, do you light up more sitting across from one person, walking them through their specific version of that problem? Because if you do, that's your nudge toward coaching. Or do you light up more building the system, building the document, building the structure that solves it once and works for anyone else who picks it up? Because if so, that is your nudge towards a digital product. And if you are just joining live, we covered 3 specific digital products already. We talked about coaching, and if you missed any of that conversation, I invite you to catch the replay of this on my YouTube channel, okay? But here's the thing that I want you to take away from this. Neither one of these is better, and I think I've repeated that a couple times in this conversation. Coaching is not better than a digital product. A digital product is not better than coaching. And I want to be very clear about that because I see this hierarchy form in women's minds where they believe that coaching feels like a real business and templates feel like the consolation prize to the business. And that hierarchy is false. Because here is real for real. Some of the most consistent income in this space, it comes from a $15 checklist that sells while that person who created that product is asleep. And it's not from a coaching call that required her to show up live. Now, here's the thing about this. Don't pick the structure based on what you think is going to be easier. Because making money while you sleep, like that's attractive to lottie-dottie and everybody, right? But that might not be the structure that you need to build. I want you to build for today, not for tomorrow. Okay? And I'm not really getting into the how to build these things because the how to build these things are, I would take 4 hours of your time and we don't got time for that. So I don't want you to think about, ooh, it sounds real good to make money while I sleep. That's why I want to do digital products. Because what determines your starting point, it's not really your ambition. It is your energy. I want you to build the thing that doesn't drain you to create. Because you are far more likely to never finish a project that drains you. But you're far more likely to finish something that energizes you. And you can do this in one weekend. Okay? So there is a second filter that I think you might want to use as you start to figure out whether you want to start with digital products or coaching. And this is especially for the women who are listening and under the sound of my voice, who are stretched thin between a demanding job and everything else that you have on your plate. I want you to ask yourself which one of these options fits the season that you're in right now. Not the season you wish you were in. Is it a workbook that you can build once on a Saturday afternoon? It might fit a season with no extra hours, right? Could it be a handful of coaching calls that might fit a season where you have evenings free, but no time to sit down and write? See, there's no right or wrong answer here, right? It's all about what works for you in your life and your lifestyle. And I want you to build for the life that you're living right now, not for the life on your vision board. The vision board version can come later, after the first version proves itself. We talked a little bit about that earlier, right? And if you're just joining, I invite you to go watch the replay on my YouTube channel. So before I get into why this matters beyond the money, I want to address something that sabotages more first products than anything else, and that is pricing. Because here's what I see. A woman finally builds her checklist or workbook and she feels proud of it, and then she prices it like she's apologizing for charging anything at all for the thing that she just built. So she's charging $5 or $7, just to get it out there, right? And then she's confused when it doesn't sell because somewhere in her mind, a low price felt like the safe choice. And I want to offer you a completely different way of looking at this. Because a price isn't just a number, it's a signal. When you price something too low, you're not making it more accessible, you're making it look less valuable, and buyers read that signal whether they realize it consciously or not. So a $5 workbook gets treated like a $5 workbook. It gets skimmed, it gets half finished, it gets forgotten in a downloads folder. A product that is priced with confidence, it gets treated with respect, both by the buyer and honestly by you. And there is a second layer to all of this that almost nobody talks about. And that is, underpricing isn't really about the buyer at all. It has nothing to do with the buyer. It's about you trying to make the ask feel smaller so the rejection, if the rejection comes, feels smaller too. So if you only charge $5 for the thing, it doesn't sting or it doesn't hurt as much if somebody says no or if it flops, right? It was just $5. But that protection comes at a cost because you've built a business model around minimizing your own disappointment instead of reflecting your true value. Do I need to say that again? The $5 doesn't sting because it was just $5. But now you're building a business model that is minimizing your own disappointment. You don't want to feel the disappointment, so I'm going to price it low so I'm not that disappointed, but I'm not building a business model that's reflective of my true value. And what most successful first products share is this. They are priced low enough to remove the friction from the sale, but they're priced high enough to signal that the content inside solves a real problem. And that is a different number than whatever feels comfortable to charge. It's a strategic number, and it's one that you can learn, and it's not one that you have to guess forever. It's a strategic number. Now I want to bring this back to something bigger than a checklist or a coaching call, because that's not really what we're talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. If that's what you're picking up, that's not what I'm putting down, okay? What we have been talking about for real though is identity. We are talking about what does it mean to a woman? What does it mean to a woman to internally, I'm talking about the inside, the moment she stops seeing her own knowledge as something she gives away by default and starts seeing it as something with a price attached to it. What does that do to a woman? Because something will shift in how you carry yourself at work once you know you have an exit that isn't desperate. You negotiate different, you speak up in meetings different, you stop absorbing every unreasonable request out of fear because fear requires you to believe you have no other option. And right now, if you go through this and you start to build that second option, you're already building it right now. And this is alignment work that is disguised as income work. Don't confuse the two. We're talking about alignment work here because the goal was never just a few extra $100 a month. Although, let's be clear, we don't minimize the money around here. The money matters. And I'm not going to pretend that the money doesn't matter. But it's not the only thing that matters. The deeper goal is the version of you who isn't negotiating from a place of needing this job to survive. The woman who makes different choices when she has options. That woman makes different choices. She tolerates less. She advocates for herself. She advocates for more for herself. She walks into rooms with a different stride because she knows for the first time in a long time that her value doesn't live entirely inside someone else's org chart. That, ladies and ladies and ladies, that is the freedom piece. Not freedom as in quitting your job tomorrow. Freedom as in choice. Remember, I don't want y'all ever to say Nick Scott is anti-employment and anti-9 to 5, because that's not what this is about. This is about options. It's about choices. It's about freedom. It is freedom in knowing that if this job ends tomorrow, you wouldn't be starting from zero because you'd already have something built, tested, and proven on the side. That's what this is about. So if you're out here saying, Nick Scott told me to leave my 9 to 5, no, she didn't. Nick Scott is telling you to build alongside your 9 to 5. So if something happens, you already have something that is built, tested, and proven to fall back on. I want to leave you with one more way of seeing all this, because this is the part that sticks the longest. Right now, your income has exactly one source and exactly one off switch, and somebody else controls that switch, right? Every workbook, every template, every coaching client that you take on, that is a second switch. That switch is built and it is controlled by you. So you don't need 10 of these switches. You only need one to change the entire equation of how much power any single employer holds over your life. And the other thing that I want to say is you're not behind. So many women think that it's too late to get into this. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are not missing some special qualification that everyone else seems to have found. The truth of the matter is you are sitting on a body of knowledge right now, today, that someone else would pay a premium to access. And the only thing separating you from getting that person's money is the decision to package what you already know. So if you don't take anything else away from this conversation or anything else from any piece of content that you see on any of my social media, I want you to stop. I want you to take this away. Stop calling it just something I'm good at. I want you to start calling it what it is, and that is inventory. And here's what I want you to know after watching too many women go through this exact realization. The realization of knowing you have something to sell and knowing how to package it, price it, and launch it are two completely different skill sets. And most women get stuck in the gap between them. They stay stuck in that gap for months and sometimes years, rewriting the same idea in their notes app, but they're never quite brave enough to hit publish on anything. I've seen it stuck like Chuck in that gap. You are leaving this conversation today believing you have value. I hope so. I hope you are leaving this conversation today that believing that you have value. That part I'm going to trust you on, okay? Where most women stall out is the part that nobody teaches. And how do you take what's in your head and turn that into something a stranger can buy without spending months agonizing over the platform, agonizing over the price, or agonizing over the perfect launch plan? And that is exactly why I created 2K in 2 hours. 2K in 2 hours is not a course that you sit through for 6 weeks hoping it eventually clicks. It is a focused 2-hour framework that walks you through identifying your most sellable skill, packaging that skill into your very first offer, and getting your offer in front of buyers. And I built this micro course because I watched too many talented women sit on valuable knowledge for years. They're sitting there waiting to feel ready. They're waiting for permission. They're waiting for some imaginary moment where they finally feel qualified enough. Let me tell you something. That moment is not going to come because you have to create that moment. And if anything I said in this conversation made you nod along thinking, okay, I feel you, Nick, but how do I start? How do I start building alongside my 9 to 5? That question can get answered in the next 2 hours, not in the next 2 years. Okay? So I want you to head over to my website at herincomeedit.com/2K, or you can click the link down in the description, and let's turn what you know into your next stream of income. Get the 2K in 2 hours, okay? Hello, hello, hello. Happy Friday. Thanks for joining. Listen, I want to thank each and every one of you for taking time to pop in and out of today's live. You did not go unnoticed. I see the love on YouTube. You did not go unnoticed. Thanks so much for joining. I want all of you to have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. My name is Nick Scott. This has been another episode of Nick at Noon. I am here Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at noon Mountain Time. Y'all have a wonderful, beautiful weekend, and I will see y'all in the next